They blocked her at 11:43 p.m. like she was nobody. Hannah Reyes had been running since the ambulance radio crackled through the night shift, running the way ICU nurses ran, which was not panicked but precise, each step carrying the weight of a decision already being made before her feet landed. The third-floor corridor smelled of antiseptic and recycled cold air, and the fluorescent lights threw flat white truth across everything, hiding nothing. She reached room 7 and the security guard stepped directly into her path. "Family order," he said. "No entry." Hannah looked at the door. Through the narrow window she could see the monitors, the jagged cardiac rhythm of aconitine poisoning, which she recognized because she had spent 4 months researching obscure toxicology cases and had personally submitted the request 6 months ago to stock the antidote that almost no hospital in the city carried. She had prepared for exactly this scenario. She had not known the scenario would arrive on her shift, wearing the face of a man she had never met who was currently dying in room 7. "I'm the assigned ICU nurse for this ward," she said. "Step aside." "Mr. Cole gave specific instructions," the guard said. "No unauthorized personnel." She had been here before. Not this door. This moment. The moment where a room full of people registered her body before her badge. Where they looked at her weight, her scrubs, the way she occupied space, and made their determination before she had spoken a word. She had been here in the medical school elevator. At the pharmacy counter. In 100 rooms across 11 years. She had spent 11 years being invisible while being the most important person present. The man in room 7 had 17 minutes. She turned. Walked fast, not running because running created panic, toward Dr. Allison at the attending station. "Room 7, she said, placing both hands flat on the desk. "Aconitine poisoning. Stage 2 cardiac toxicity. 17 minutes before the concentration becomes irreversible." She held his gaze. "I have been blocked from the room by a family instruction with no procedural basis. The antidote is in controlled substance storage on this floor. I stocked it 6 months ago. I need your override. Now." Allison had worked with her for 4 years. He had learned that when Hannah Reyes said urgent, it was urgent. He walked to room 7. Spoke to the guard. The guard made a call. 45 seconds Hannah counted while watching the monitors through the glass do what monitors did when measuring a man running out of time. The guard stepped aside. She went in. The room smelled of antiseptic and the copper note of a body under physiological siege. Victor Cole was 47, 6 feet 1, and currently the color of someone whose cardiovascular system was being methodically dismantled. Hannah began assessment with the efficiency of a person who had done this so many times that competence had become muscle memory. Vitals. Pupils. The arrhythmia pattern confirmed exactly what she had identified from the corridor. Outside the glass, a man in a suit was watching her. Mid-30s. The expression of someone who had expected something to happen and was watching it not happen. She did not know his name yet. She noted the expression. Filed it. "What's wrong with me?" Victor's voice was strained but present. "You've been poisoned," she said, not looking up from the 4 she was placing. "The compound affects cardiac sodium channels. The good news is I recognized it and we have the antidote." She met his eyes briefly. "The other news is that timing matters significantly, so I need you to be calm while I work." "The other news," he said. "Not bad news," she said. "News with a schedule." He held still. I watched her. She could feel it. His attention had a specific quality, the way certain things had specific gravity. She ignored it and focused on the 4 line on the monitors on the 14 minutes remaining. "Your name," he said. "Hannah Reyes. Night ICU." She glanced up. "Yours." "You don't know." "I know what's on the chart," she said. "I'm asking who you are." Something moved across his face. Not many people asked Victor Cole who he was rather than what. "Victor," he said. "Victor." She confirmed it the way she confirmed all clinical information. Simply, directly. "Tell me what you consumed at dinner and when." He told her. She filed it without writing, trusting her memory the way she always trusted it. Outside the glass, the man in the suit had his phone out. She needed to place the antidote. She needed to monitor the response. She needed to watch the man outside that window at the same time. She was good at doing several things at once. She had been doing it invisibly for 11 years. Why had the family blocked her specifically? What did the man outside want? And why did Victor Cole's eyes keep returning to her with the specific focus of someone recalibrating everything he thought he understood about a room? Hannah administered the first antidote dose at 11:56 p.m. The medication entered the foreline and she watched the monitor with the focused patience of someone who had learned that the most important thing you could do after an intervention was wait accurately. Not anxiously. Accurately. Victor was watching her watch the monitor. "You're not afraid," he said. "You're my patient," she said. "Patients don't frighten me. People know my name," he said. "Usually that creates a specific reaction." "I know what aconitine does to cardiac tissue," she said. "That's considerably more frightening than a name." He looked at the monitor. "Your rhythm is showing an early response. That's good." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "The man who blocked you. Marcus. My nephew. He's still in the corridor," she said. She had been tracking him through the glass without appearing to track him. "He's been on his phone since I entered the room." Victor said nothing. She registered the specific quality of his silence. Not processing the way most patients processed. Assembling. The silence of a man who was building something from pieces. "You were at dinner tonight," she said. "Who recommended the wine?" His jaw moved. "How did you know there was wine?" "Aconitine is most effectively delivered in alcohol," she said. "It masks the bitter taste." "I'm asking who recommended it." Another silence. Longer. "Marcus," he said. The word arrived in the room with the specific weight of a name being recognized as something other than what it had been. She said nothing. He did not need to. She checked the 4 rate and adjusted the flow and let the information sit between them the way accurate information sat. Heavy and still. At 12:09 a.m., the pharmacy liaison appeared at the nursing station. Hannah could see him through the glass. A young man named Derek who had worked nights for 3 years without giving her a single reason to distrust him. He was holding a form. Her colleague at the station was nodding at something he was saying with the specific expression of someone being told something official that they haven't been trained to question. She moved to the door. "Watch the monitor," she told Victor. "Tell me if the sound changes." "You're leaving." "For 60 seconds, she said. "The monitor makes a different sound if the rhythm destabilizes. You'll know it when you hear it." She stepped out. Derek and her colleague approached. Heard the words "controlled substance review." "Irregularity in procurement documentation." "Temporary removal pending investigation." She looked at the form in Derek's hand. Fresh paper. Crisp edges. A family request disguised as a clinical directive. "The antidote vial is currently in administration," she said. Documented in the chart at 11:56 p.m. under Dr. Allison's attending authorization. She held Derek's gaze. "Who sent you here?" Derek looked uncomfortable. "A Mr. Cole indicated." "Mr. Cole is a family member," she said. "He has no authority over controlled substance management in this ICU." She looked at Dr. Allison who had returned to the station. "Dr. Allison. Family members cannot initiate controlled substance reviews. Please confirm." "Confirmed," Allison said. He looked at Derek. "Return to pharmacy. Administration is proceeding under attendance authorization." Derek left. Hannah watched him go. Then she moved to the medication cart, opened the controlled substance compartment, and removed the second vial she had placed there 4 hours ago. She put it in her scrubs pocket. She had prepared it that afternoon when she restocked the ICU for the night shift, in the same way she always prepared for the things nobody else prepared for. Underfunded systems had taught her the iron rule. Never trust a single safeguard. She went back to room 7. "The sound didn't change," Victor said. "Good," she said. "The rhythm is stabilizing." He checked the monitor. "Someone just attempted to have your medication removed from the floor. I blocked it." Victor held her gaze. "My nephew." "A family request form was submitted," she said. "Not a physician order. The pharmacy liaison was sent here under false pretense." She met his eyes. "I want you to know this because you're going to need accurate information when you're well enough to act on it." He looked at her for a long moment. "You just told me my own nephew is trying to kill me." "I told you the timeline of events," she said. "You can draw the conclusion." He exhaled. Not weakness but the specific controlled breath of a man accepting the weight of something. "Who prepared you for this?" "I prepared myself," she said. "Years ago. The cases that kill people are always the ones nobody planned for. She adjusted his monitor LED. You happen to be the case I planned for. His eyes stayed on her. The room was quiet except for the monitors and the recycled air and the specific charged attention of a man who had spent 20 years assessing people and was doing it now with complete focus. Outside the glass, Marcus Cole was no longer visible in the corridor. Where had he gone? What was his next move? And why was a text arriving on Victor's bedside phone from his head of security Garrett, not entering the room, but messaging from the waiting area downstairs, at 12:18 a.m.? Victor showed Hannah the message at 12:23 a.m. 3 words from Garrett, his head of security. I need to talk. She read it. Set the phone down. He's been downstairs since you were admitted? Garrett never leaves a building I'm in, Victor said. He should have been at that door the moment the guard blocked you. Hannah held his gaze. She said what she was thinking because accurate information was the only tool that worked in this room. Then his absence was a choice. Victor's jaw set. The subtle tightening she was already learning. His body's most honest response to things his face refused to show. Yes, he said. Text him to come up, she said. I want him where I can see him. Victor looked at her. You want him where you can see him. This is my ICU, she said simply. Room management is my domain. Something shifted in his expression. He typed 1 word to Garrett. Come. Garrett arrived in 4 minutes. Large. The specific build of a man whose professional life had required physical preparedness. He came in and assessed the room, Hannah, Victor, the monitors, in 3 seconds with the trained efficiency of someone who did this automatically. Close the door, Hannah said to him. Directly. Not to Victor. Garrett looked at her. Then closed the door. You should have been at that door at 11:43, she said. When a security guard operating on family instruction blocked the assigned ICU nurse from an acute patient. She held his gaze. Why weren't you? Garrett looked at Victor. Victor said nothing. Waiting. Tell me, Garrett said. Or tell him. Tell us both, Hannah said. Accurately. Garrett held the room for a long moment. Then sat in the chair beside the door. The chair was too small, he knew it, sat in it anyway. Marcus approached me 6 weeks ago, Garrett said. He said Victor was planning organizational restructuring. That my position was at risk. His eyes stayed on Victor. He asked for schedule information. Access details. Pause. I said no. The first time, Victor said. He came back with documentation. I am 11 years old. An incident involving someone I protect. Garrett exhaled. I gave him 3 pieces of information across 4 weeks. I told myself they were minor. The dinner tonight, Victor said. Yes, Garrett said. The location. The guest list. The private dining entrance. The room absorbed this. The monitor above Victor produced its steady normalizing rhythm, which was the only steady thing currently in the room. Hannah watched Victor's face. The jaw was set. The eyes were flat. She recognized the expression. It was the same face patients made when a diagnosis arrived that confirmed what they had already suspected. The pain of confirmation rather than surprise. Victor, she said quietly. He looked at her. She held his gaze and said nothing else. Just hold it. She had learned that sometimes the most useful thing a person could do was be steady and present while someone else processed something enormous. He breathed. Once. Twice. Garrett, he said. His voice was controlled. You're going to stay in this room tonight. Yes, Garrett said. And Marcus. The door opened. Marcus Cole walked into room 7 with the specific confidence of a man who had convinced himself the situation was still manageable. He looked at Victor. At the monitors. At the improving rhythm on the screen. His confidence recalibrated. Then he saw Garrett. His recalibration completed. I need to speak to my uncle, he said. Privately. No, Garrett said. Marcus looked at Hannah. The nurse needs to step out. I'm the attending care provider for this patient, Hannah said. I stay in this room. She held his gaze with the specific calm of a woman who had spent 11 years being told to step out and had stopped doing it. You're welcome to step outside. Marcus looked at Victor. Victor had not moved. He was watching his nephew with the eyes of a man who had assembled all his pieces and had arrived at a complete picture. You look better, Uncle, Marcus said. Hannah made sure of that, Victor said. The woman you had blocked from my room. Marcus's jaw moved. That was a misunderstanding. The protocol. There is no protocol, Hannah said. I've worked in this ICU for 4 years. No family instruction supersedes assigned nursing authority in an acute case. She took one step forward. I know what you submitted to the pharmacy. I know when you submitted it. I know what the guard was told. She held his gaze. I have documented every attempt to interfere with this patient's care. Time-stamped. Read only in the hospital system. Marcus looked at her. The performance of authority collapsed. Not dramatically but completely, like a wall that had been hollow the whole time. You don't understand what you're involved in, he said. I understand completely, she said. A patient was admitted. I provided care. Someone interfered twice. I managed both attempts and documented them. She paused. That's what I do. If you say anything to anyone, he began. Marcus. Victor's voice. Quiet. The kind of quiet that lived in the same space as something much louder. Stop talking. Marcus stopped. Outside the glass, 2 members of hospital security were moving toward room 7. Hannah had paged them 90 seconds ago, while Marcus was still making his entrance. She had anticipated the confrontation. She had prepared for it. She was always 3 steps ahead of the people who didn't think she was watching. The formal complaint arrived at 1:34 a.m. Hannah read it at the nursing station while Marcus was being escorted from the floor by hospital security. The complaint alleged unauthorized medication administration and failure to follow family instruction. It had been filed under Cole. Submitted digitally at 1:27 a.m., 7 minutes before Marcus was escorted out, which meant he had filed it while still in the building, which meant he had prepared it in advance. She read it once. Set her tablet down. Returned to her documentation. She had been building the record since 11:43 p.m. Every intervention. Every observation. Every attempt to access the room and every procedural response. The pharmacy interaction. The timestamps automatic, the hospital system logging every entry at the moment of creation. When she finished at 3:15 a.m., she had 14 pages. She sent the complete documentation to Dr. Allison with a single line, for the governance review. Then she went back to room 7. Victor was awake. More awake than 2 hours ago. His cardiac rhythm fully normalized now, his cognition returning with it. He was lying in the bed with the eyes of a man assembling things at a speed that suggested the last 3 hours had not reduced his capacity at all. Garrett's statement is being prepared, he said when she entered. My attorney arrived at 2. The police were here at 2:45. I know, she said. She had seen them. How are you feeling? Better than I should be, he said. Because of you. She moved to the monitor. Checked the readings. Made notations. Her hands did what they always did. The precise, practiced movements of someone for whom the work was indistinguishable from breathing. The complaint Marcus filed, Victor said, will not survive the review, she said. My documentation is 14 pages. Every intervention is time-stamped, witnessed, and consistent with established ICU protocol. She looked at him. The complaint has no foundation. It will be reviewed and dismissed. You knew he was going to file something, Victor said. I knew he was going to try to discredit me, she said. The interference attempts failed, so discrediting me was his next option. She met his gaze. I build documentation because I work in a field where the first thing people question is my authority. I have been building documentation for 11 years. His complaint is fighting against a very complete record. Victor held her gaze. Something moved across his face. The expression she had been registering since 11:52 p.m. but hadn't fully named yet. Not patient assessment. Something more direct. Tell me about the 11 years, he said. She almost said that wasn't a typical patient request. She had already said that once. She chose honesty instead. I've worked nights because nights are honest, she said. The people who need to perform go home. What's left is medicine. He looked at the monitor. I've spent those years being the most prepared person in rooms where I was treated as the least significant. I've responded to that by becoming more prepared. She paused. Tonight is the first time that preparation was visible to the person it saved. Not the first time it mattered, Victor said. The first time you were seen. She held his gaze. The distinction landed accurately. Yes, she said. He held her gaze for a moment that extended past the clinic. The second dose, he said. You prepared a backup without telling anyone. Systems fail, she said. I don't trust single safeguards. You trusted yourself, he said. I trust what I can verify, she said. I can verify my own preparation. He was quiet. Outside the glass, the ICU continued its night. Monitors, soft footsteps, the recycled air moving through its vents. Inside room 7, something had shifted in the quality of the space. The specific shift of two people who have been through something real together and are now, on the other side of it, recognizing each other properly for the first time. Hannah, he said. Her name specifically. Not Nurse Reyes. Not the nurse. My organization will be conducting an internal review. The scope of Marcus's actions, Garrett's involvement, how far the breach extended. He held her gaze. I want your documentation as part of that review. My documentation belongs to the hospital's governance process first, she said. After that process concludes, I'll share what I'm able to. She held his gaze. But Victor, the review you need most isn't of Marcus. It's the system that allows someone to use your blind spots for 6 weeks without you seeing it. He held her gaze. Why blind spots, he said. Everyone has them, she said. The people closest to you are usually inside them. She adjusted his foreline. That's not a criticism. It's information. You're not afraid to tell me things I don't want to hear, he said. Accurate information is the only kind worth giving, she said. His jaw tightened. Not the anger tightening but the other kind, the kind that arrived when something landed somewhere that mattered. He looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then back at her. The governance board meets at 8 a.m., he said. The complaint will be reviewed. I know, she said. I'll have completed my shift documentation by then. You're going to finish your shift, he said. My shift ends at 7, she said. I finish what I start. He looked at her with the full undivided version of his attention. I know that about you now, he said. And outside the glass, Dr. Allison was walking toward the nursing station with the specific expression of a man who had just read 14 pages and was going to remember them for a long time. 2-day shift nurses were already arriving early, drawn by the specific gravitational pull of a night that had become a story. But what Hannah didn't know yet, what nobody in that corridor knew, was that Marcus had made one more call before security reached him. And the person he had called was not his attorney. It was someone whose name would not appear in any of the hospital's visitor logs, because he had never signed in at the front desk. He was already inside the building. And he was on his way to the 3rd floor. The elevator opened at 3:47 a.m. and Hannah saw him immediately. She was at the nursing station, finalizing documentation, when the doors slid open and a man emerged who did not belong to the hospital in any visible way. Not a patient. Not a family member performing grief. Not a physician. He moved through the corridor with the specific directional efficiency of someone who had been given a location and was executing a route. He was heading for room 7. Hannah stood. Stepped into the corridor. Sir. Her voice carried the flat authority of someone who owned the floor. This is a restricted area. Visiting hours are 6 a.m. I need to see your authorization. The man stopped. I looked at her. The assessment in his eyes was not the assessment of someone who had expected to be addressed. He had expected a night shift nurse to be invisible. I'm family, he said. Family members are in the waiting area, Hannah said. I can escort you there. Visiting begins at 6. She held her ground. She was blocking the corridor between him and room 7 with the specific calm of someone who understood that calm was the most powerful thing available to her right now. I'll need your name for the family contact log. He did not give a name. He looked at her for 3 seconds. Then looked past her at room 7. Then back at her. He turned and walked back to the elevator. Hannah watched him go. Then she called hospital security. Then she called Victor's room. He answered immediately. What happened? A man came out of the elevator at 3:47, she said. No authorization, no sign-in record, heading directly for your room. I redirected him. Security is pulling elevator footage now. Pause. What did he look like? She described him. Precisely. She had been observing people her entire career and had learned to build descriptions in real time the way other people built arguments. Quickly, completely, from specific details rather than general impressions. Victor was quiet for a moment. She heard him make a call on a separate line. Brief. 3 sentences. Then back to her. He works for the people Marcus borrowed from, he said. Not the family. The other kind. The other kind, she repeated. Marcus needed money to execute the plan, Victor said. He borrowed it from people who loan money to people who are planning inheritances. His voice was very controlled. Which means they expected him to succeed tonight. And now they're confirming why he didn't. She held the phone. The corridor was very quiet. The monitors continued their sounds behind her. Victor, she said. Are you telling me the man Marcus owed money to just sent someone to this floor? I'm telling you the footage you requested will confirm it, he said. And that hospital security needs to be at that elevator until my people arrive. Pause. My people will arrive in 15 minutes. I'm calling them now. Your people cannot have weapons on hospital premises, she said immediately. I know, he said. They won't. Victor. Hannah. Her name the way he had been saying it all night. Specific, direct, carrying something she had not yet allowed herself to fully receive. You have managed everything that has entered your floor tonight with complete competence. I am asking you to let me manage what happens in the next 15 minutes. She held the phone. I looked at the elevator. At the security guard she had called who was now positioned at the corridor entrance. The documentation on her screen was 14 pages and growing. 15 minutes, she said. 14 now, he said. Stay away from the elevator. She stayed away from the elevator. She remained at the nursing station where she could see the corridor, room 7 and the elevator simultaneously. She finished her documentation. She paged Dr. Ellison. She prepared the next round of Victor's monitoring checks. At 4:02 a.m. 3 men arrived from the stairwell. Not the elevator, the stairwell, and positioned themselves in the corridor with the specific quiet efficiency of professionals. No weapons visible. Hands clear. They nodded at Hannah as they passed the station. She nodded back. Then returned to her documentation. At 4:11 a.m., Victor's phone showed a message from one of the 3 men. Handled. At 4:14 a.m., Victor pressed the call button for his nurse. Hannah went in. Sit down, he said. I'm working, she said. Sit down for 60 seconds, he said. Please. She sat. The chair beside his bed. The room smelled of antiseptic and the specific changed quality of air after a long night. The monitors were steady. The fluorescent light was doing what fluorescent light did, showing everything, flattering nothing. He looked at her. You stopped him, he said. The man from the elevator. With nothing except your presence and your voice. I asked him his name, she said. He didn't have one he was willing to give. Most people would have moved aside, he said. Most people haven't spent 11 years learning that moving aside is expensive, she said. He held her gaze across the small distance between the bed and the chair. I want to tell you something, he said. And I want you to receive it without deflecting it with a clinical observation. She held his gaze. Waited. I have been in rooms with very capable people for 23 years, he said. I have watched people manage crises, manage threats, manage the specific complexity of situations that had no clean solution. He held her gaze steadily. I have never watched anyone manage more in less time with fewer resources than I watched you manage tonight. She held the silence. Let it be what it was. That's accurate information, she finally said. He almost smiled. Yes, he said. It is. Her pager went off. She stood. I looked at the display. The governance board moved the review to 6 a.m., she said. 2 hours early. She picked up her tablet. Marcus filed a second complaint at 4 a.m. from police custody. He looked at Victor. He's trying to move faster than my documentation. Can he? Victor said. She looked at him steadily. No, she said. He cannot. She walked out. At the nursing station she opened her documentation. He had 2 hours. He was going to use every minute of them. Not because she was afraid of the review. Because the record needed to be complete, and a complete record was the only thing that held when someone with resources tried to dismantle it. She had been building complete records for 11 years. This was simply the one that mattered most. At 5:15 a.m., the ICU was in its specific pre-dawn quiet. Shift change was 2 hours away. The documentation was 16 pages. Hannah set her tablet down and rubbed her eyes with the backs of her hands and allowed herself 45 seconds of not doing anything productive. Victor's call button lit up. She went in. "You need to sleep," she said. "I need to ask you something," he said. She sat. The chair. Same position as before, which felt less clinical than it had 45 minutes ago, and she chose not to examine why. "Why this hospital?" he said. "You could work anywhere. Your record is," he paused. "I had my attorney pull your professional history at 4 a.m. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion." "You had your attorney pull my professional history while you were in an ICU recovering from poisoning," she said. "Yes," he said. "What does that tell you?" She held his gaze. "It tells me you process situations by gathering complete information," she said. "The same way I do." "What did he find?" "I assume commendations," she said. "Patient outcome statistics that are above average. A procurement request 6 months ago for an obscure antidote." She held his gaze. "And probably several formal complaints filed against me by administrators who felt I exceeded my authority." "For complaints," he said. "All dismissed." "Because I exceed my authority in documented, justifiable ways," she said. He looked at her. "Why this hospital?" She was quiet for a moment. She could give the professional answer. Proximity, scheduling, the specific ICU infrastructure. Instead she gave him what he was actually asking for. "Because this hospital serves a population that other hospitals don't prioritize," she said. "Night shift here means I'm the most consistent medical presence for patients who come in at 2 a.m. with no family and no advocate." She held his gaze. "I know what it is to be in a room where nobody is fighting for you. I fight for those patients." He held her gaze with complete attention. "Who fights for you?" he said. The question arrived in the room and sat there. She had not been asked about it before. Not once in 11 years. She looked at her hands on her knees. Her hands that had placed IVs and administered antidotes and documented 16 pages and blocked a corridor at 3:47 a.m. with nothing except her voice and her presence. "I do," she said. "Yes," he said. "You've been alone." He held her gaze. "That shouldn't be the only answer." She looked at him. "Victor. You were poisoned 14 hours ago." "I'm aware," he said. "My cognition is fully restored. I'm making an accurate observation." "You're making an observation about a woman you met 6 hours ago," she said. "I met you 6 hours ago," he said. "I know more about you than I know about people I've worked with for years. Because I've been watching you work." He held her gaze. "And because some people show you who they are very completely under pressure." She held his gaze. The monitors were steady. The corridor outside was quiet. The pre-dawn light through the small window above the equipment was doing something different from the fluorescent overhead. Warmer, arriving at an angle that changed the room slightly. "What did you see?" she said. Not fishing. Genuinely asking. "Someone who prepared for every failure point," he said. "Someone who was blocked and responded with procedure rather than anger. Someone who moved a backup dose to her pocket before the threat materialized, because she had already anticipated it." He paused. "Someone who stopped a man at an elevator with her voice and then filed the documentation before she allowed herself to process what had just happened." He held her gaze. "Someone who has been fighting for everyone around her for 11 years and has not once asked anyone to fight for her." She was quiet. "That's accurate," she finally said. "I know," he said. "I'm good at accuracy." She looked at the monitor. The cardiac rhythm was steady, normalized, healthy. The man in the bed was alive because she had prepared for a scenario nobody else had prepared for. That was the complete truth. "Victor," she said. "There's something you should know before the governance review." He waited. "The second complaint Marcus filed at 4 a.m. from police custody," she said. "It includes a claim that I administered medication without proper attending authorization." She held his gaze. "It's false. Dr. Ellison's authorization is documented. But Marcus's attorney is arguing that the attending override happened under duress, that I pressured Ellison to override the family instruction." Victor's jaw set. "Did you?" I presented accurate medical information and asked for procedural authorization, she said. Whether that constitutes pressure depends on whose definition you use. She held his gaze. His attorney is going to argue it was coercion. Ellison will testify accurately, Victor said. Ellison will testify accurately, she agreed. But the governance board reviews based on documentation, and Marcus is betting my documentation has gaps. She paused. It doesn't. But I wanted you to know what's coming at 6 a.m. He held her gaze. Then he reached for his phone. Who are you calling? She said. My attorney, he said. To be at that governance review. He met her eyes. You've been fighting alone for 11 years. You're not fighting alone this morning. She held his gaze for a long moment. Let the weight of it arrive without deflecting it. The warmth of it specifically, the specific warmth of being seen and responded to with something real. The review starts in 45 minutes, she said. He'll be there in 30, Victor said. She stood. Adjusted the monitor lead on his chest. Not because it needed adjusting. Because her hands needed something to do while she organized what was happening in her chest. Hannah, he said. She looked at him. What you said earlier. That tonight is the first time your preparation was visible to the person it saved. He held her gaze. I want you to know I intend to make sure it's not the last. She held his gaze. That's a significant statement from someone in an ICU bed. I'll be out of the bed tomorrow, he said. The statement stands. She walked out. At the nursing station she opened her documentation. 16 pages. She read it once from the beginning. Found nothing missing. I closed it. The pre-dawn shift was the loneliest part of any night. She had always worked through it alone. This morning felt different. Not because anything external had changed. Because someone had looked at her, fully, accurately, without deciding in advance what they were looking at, and had seen her correctly. That was rarer than any antidote she had ever stalked. The clinical governance board convened at 6 a.m. in the fourth-floor conference room, which smelled of old coffee and the specific institutional seriousness of a room that only opened for things that mattered. 8 people around the table. The board's lead physician Dr. Wallace. Dr. Ellison. The hospital's legal counsel. 2 board members. The pharmacy director. And, because the case involved a patient of Victor Cole's profile, a representative from the hospital's executive administration who had arrived at 5:45 and had been on his phone since. Hannah sat on one side of the table with her 16-page documentation, her 11-year professional record, and Dr. Ellison beside her. Marcus's attorney sat on the other side. Victor's attorney, a precise woman named Lena Park who had arrived at 5:55 a.m. in a suit that communicated she had been awake for this specific situation, sat apart from both sides and said nothing until Dr. Wallace opened the proceedings. We're reviewing 2 complaints filed against Nurse Hannah Reyes in connection with events in the ICU on the night of. Before we begin, Lena said, I'd like to submit a patient statement. She placed a document on the table. Victor Cole's statement, signed and dated at 5:30 a.m. this morning, describing the sequence of events from his perspective as the patient. Dr. Wallace looked at it. The patient was incapacitated. The patient is fully lucid as of 3 a.m., Lena said. His physician can confirm. She looked at Ellison. Confirmed, Ellison said. Full cognitive restoration by 2:45 a.m. Dr. Wallace opened the statement. Read it. Passed it to the board members. The executive administration representative stopped his phone call. Hannah watched the statement move around the table. She had not known Victor was writing it at 5:30 a.m. She noted this. Filed it alongside everything else she had filed about him. The things offered before being asked were more reliable than anything said directly. Marcus's attorney tried twice to redirect the review toward Hannah's conduct. Dr. Wallace shut down both attempts by returning to the documentation. 16 pages. Time-stamped. Cross-referenced. The pharmacy interaction was confirmed by Derek's own statement, which had been obtained by hospital security at 4 a.m. and submitted to the board before the meeting began. At 7:12 a.m., Dr. Wallace looked up from the documentation package. The complaints filed by Marcus Cole have no evidentiary foundation, he said. Nurse Reyes's administration of medication occurred under physician authorization, documented in real time, consistent with ICU emergency protocol. He looked at Hannah directly. The board additionally notes that Nurse Reyes's 6-month advance procurement of the aconitine antidote directly saved a patient's life. This will be formally acknowledged in her professional record. The room was quiet. Marcus's attorney gathered his papers. Said nothing. But Dr. Ellison exhaled. The sound of a man who had been holding something for several hours and was releasing it. Lena Park looked at Hannah across the table. Victor asked me to tell you that he watched the delivery on his room's intercom, she said. He said to tell you the record is accurate. Hannah held that for a moment. Tell him thank you, she said, for reading the documentation before he signed it. Lena almost smiled. I'll tell him. Outside the conference room, the hospital was doing what hospitals did at 7 a.m. shift change, the arrival of day staff, the specific ambient increase of institutional energy as the building populated. Hannah walked through it toward the elevator with the specific unhurried movement of a person who has completed something and is allowing the completion to arrive. Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor's room. The record is accurate. He typed back, I know. I wrote it. His response came in 30 seconds. You wrote it for 11 years before tonight. She held the phone in the elevator. The doors closed. She looked at her reflection in the stainless steel, her scrubs, her hair from 12 hours of shift, the specific honest appearance of a person who had been working and was not going to pretend otherwise. She looked like herself. Exactly herself. She pressed the button for the 3rd floor. 3 weeks later, Hannah walked into Victor Cole's office building for the first time. Not as a patient's nurse. Not as a witness. As herself. In her own clothes, her own time, carrying nothing except the folder his attorney had sent her and the specific composed attention she brought to every room she entered. The building smelled of marble and controlled air and the specific formal authority of a place designed to communicate power without announcing it. The receptionist directed her to the 22nd floor. The elevator opened into a corridor and then an office where Victor was standing at the window when she arrived. He turned when she came in. He looked. She registered this with the clinical precision she brought to all observations, significantly better than the man in the ICU bed. Present. Upright. The eyes that had been watching her all night were watching her now with the same quality of attention, except that here in the morning light with the city below the window, it was completely unmixed with the professional requirement to observe. He was simply looking at her. Sit down, she said. I'm not in your ICU, he said. No, she agreed. But you've been standing at that window for what I estimate is 20 minutes based on the coffee on your desk that's gone cold, and you had cardiac trauma 3 weeks ago, so sit down. He sat. She almost smiled. He saw it. The folder, she said. She opened it on the desk between them. Director of Medical Preparedness. 3 properties, 240 staff. She read the title again. That's a real position. I created it 3 days ago, he said. Because it needs to exist and I know exactly who should fill it. She held his gaze. I'm a night shift ICU nurse, she said. That's what I am. You're the person who stocked an antidote 6 months in advance because you prepared for what nobody else prepared for, he said. You're the person who built 16 pages of documentation in one night that survived a legal challenge by a well-resourced attorney. He held her gaze. You're the person who stopped an unauthorized man at an elevator with your voice and then filed the report before you processed what had happened. He paused. Those skills don't disappear because the setting changes. She looked at the folder. The title. The salary, she looked at that twice because it had an extra digit that turned out not to be an error. Victor, she said. I want to be honest about something. Always, he said. I'm not taking this position because of what happened 3 weeks ago, she said. I'm not taking it because I feel I owe you something or you feel you owe me something. She held his gaze. If I take it because the work is real and I'm the right person for it. Yes, he said. That's the only reason I want you to take it. She held his gaze. The work is real, she said. The gaps in emergency preparedness across those 3 properties are significant, he said. I had a review done the week after I was discharged. The report is in the folder. He held her gaze. 14 identified vulnerabilities. No antidote protocols. Incomplete emergency response documentation. No one whose specific function is to prepare for what nobody else prepares for. She opened the back of the folder. Read the review summary. The The 14 vulnerabilities were real. 2 of them were ones she would have identified herself from the property descriptions alone. I'll need full access to staff schedules and procurement systems, she said. Done, he said. I'll need authority to implement protocol changes without requiring executive sign-off on each individual item below a designated threshold. Done, he said. And I'll need you to read what you sign, she said. Every time. He held her gaze. I read everything you write, he said. I've been reading the ICU documentation for 3 weeks. She looked at him. Why? Because the most complete thinking I've encountered in a long time is in those 16 pages, he said. And because I want to understand how you think. He held her gaze. I find that I want to understand how you think about everything. She held the folder. The morning light came through the 22nd floor windows at an angle that was different from ICU fluorescence. Warmer, less clinical, doing something honest with the room. Victor, she said. I spent 11 years in rooms where people looked at me and made their assessment before I spoke. She held his gaze. I need rooms where that doesn't happen. I looked at you the moment you walked into my room at 11:52 p.m., he said. I watched you work for 6 hours. I had my attorney pull your professional record at 4 a.m. He held her gaze. I assessed you from every angle I had access to. The assessment was accurate. He paused. You are the most prepared, most competent, most complete professional I have encountered. Another pause. And the most interesting person I have sat across from in a very long time. She held his gaze. Let it land without deflecting it. That's a significant statement, she said. I don't make statements I haven't verified, he said. She looked at the folder. At the title. At the salary. At the 14 vulnerabilities in the review report. He thought about the ICU. About night shifts. About her patients at 2 a.m. with no advocates. She thought about what it meant to prepare for the things nobody else prepared for and what happened when you were finally in a room that valued exactly that. She picked up the pen from his desk. I have one condition, she said. Name it, he said. The properties your organization acquired last year on the East Side, she said. 2 of them serve communities with limited emergency medical access. As part of the preparedness mandate, I want a community health component added. Regular first aid training, basic emergency protocol education for local staff. She held his gaze. Real preparation. For people who need it. He held her gaze for a long moment. Yes, he said. Without being asked again, she said. Without being asked again, he confirmed. She signed the contract. Set the pen down. Pushed the folder across the desk. He looked at her signature. Then at her. The expression on his face was the fully unmanaged version. The one she had seen arriving in increments across the night 3 weeks ago and was now present in the morning light without anything held back. Hannah, he said. Yes. You didn't need me, he said. The 16 pages. The second dose. Stopping the man at the elevator. Winning the governance review. He held her gaze. You didn't need me for any of it. No, she said. I didn't. Then why are you here, he said. She held his gaze across the desk in the morning light. Because you read the documentation before you signed it, she said. Because you filed a patient statement at 5:30 a.m. without being asked. Because when I told you the man at the elevator had been handled, you asked if I was all right before you asked what happened. She paused. Because you showed up for something that wasn't your obligation. You were never invisible to me, he said. From the moment you walked into that room. I know, she said. That's why I'm here. She stood. Picked up her bag. She had a full day ahead. Transition planning, the property review, a meeting with her ICU supervisor about the notice she was giving. An honest, full, specific day of work that she was already building in her mind. At the door she stopped. Turned. Victor, she said. The East Side Community Health Program. I want to start planning next week. I'll have it resourced by Friday, he said. Read the budget before you sign it, she said. Every line, he said. She walked out. The lesson did not arrive in the signing of the contract or the morning light or the moment he said you were never invisible to me. It arrived in the elevator going down, in the specific quiet of a woman who had spent 11 years preparing for scenarios nobody else prepared for, who had been blocked from a door and had gone through it anyway, not by force, but by procedure and documentation and the irreplaceable competence of someone whose value the world had spent a long time failing to see. The world had finally looked. Not because she had changed. Because one person had been paying attention. And one person paying attention accurately was enough to change every room that came after. She was the most prepared person in every room she entered. The rooms were finally going to know it. Here is the question I cannot stop thinking about. Marcus Cole tried to let his uncle die to inherit everything. Garrett, the trusted head of security, gave him the information that made it possible, and then cooperated with investigators afterward. So I want to know, when someone betrays you and then helps make it right, what do they deserve? Is cooperation after betrayal a form of redemption? Or is it just damage control? Leave your answer below. I genuinely want to know where you stand. And if you want more stories about women who were the most important person in every room, and the last one anyone thought to watch, subscribe. The next story is already waiting for you.